Hi, this is Will.
And this is Johnny.
And together,
we're Will and
Johnny. Hey guys, good to be back. Property markets, food and beverage, together, kind of the so often announced savior for every problem.
Oh God, yeah.
It's not the case, is it?
I mean, I'm tired of it, to be honest. I'm tired of hearing people say that food service is the panacea for all ills. It's the thing that's going to fix everything. It's one of the medicines. It's one of the things that works, but it's not the answer, because you need customers, you need guests for those restaurants, you need an environment, you need a sense of place for it to work. And it's a really good discussion for today is where are people going wrong, Will? Because it's not a criticism of the property industry per se, because there are some amazing companies out there that are doing it really, really, really well. But, if I asked you, where do you think a lot of property companies get it wrong when they just pile in restaurants into a space?
I think way back in time when we did our first sessions, we talked a lot about curation, if you remember. I think if we kind of try to separate the two you just said, the great property developers and the ones with a vision and a proper understanding, there's still, in my personal humble opinion, the majority which is out there, which is literally just plugging stuff in and saying, hey, F&B seems to work, let's put more F&B. We get the rent, everything's fine. Percentages, I think when I started in this industry, F&B in a shopping mall was 6%? Now it's more and more often we are 25%. And as you said, there is where do the customers come from? The restaurants in themselves, not every restaurant has the capability to drag people in. And as an F&B guy, and not as a property guy like you, I really look at this and thinking, what the hell? How should this ever work?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. And I would call them the bad old days, but when people used to, and we were the same when I was running Coverpoint. You'd produce a report that says, you've got 10% of your space is food now, and it could go to 15%. And there was logic involved in that, and there was data involved in that. But the reality was that the customer base was changing so fast. The office population was changing. The hotel guests was changing. The retail footfall was changing. It was guesswork. It was educated guesswork. But guesswork nowadays, I think it's, you can see it on the street. You can see when there's too much. You can see when it's the wrong type. And I think that a lot of those owners, they've really now got to start thinking about, it's not just about leasing for the square foot space. It's also about curating the right mix so that you get the right people as well.
Which kind of triggers the necessity from a development point of view that you understand the customer. Ultimately, not just the tenant you find for a property. Because every tenant's going to tell you, I'm the greatest guy since sliced bread, right? Every business which comes to these negotiations, and you know this better than I do, but you come there and say, we are great and this is a great concept. But I think from a development side, you need to look into people's need state. What do they really want? Where do they sit? What money do they have? How much of that money do they want to spend? And if you don't understand the customer base, you plug in the tenant, but you will not drive the turnover or the attraction for the customer.
There's always been four really basic questions that I think as any property. And I think this is always useful in these sort of talks, because I know you guys and girls, and you're watching these videos, you want to go away with something that you can actually use. But the sort of four basic questions are, what actually is the volume, and how is it made up? What is the volume of people? So, footfall in the old sense of retail, but it could be office workers. Frequency. So it's not just about how many, but it's also about how often. Ability to spend is the third thing. That's critical, because ability to spend is one thing. They're all high-earning executives, so they will want to eat fine dining. Not true.
No.
And the fourth thing, which is incredibly important, but so many people don't take care of, is day part. When do they want to eat? And if you take those four things and you analyse what you've got in your asset in terms of footfall and flows, you've got a far better chance of delivering a more balanced, not the perfect, nobody's going to get perfect, but the more balanced food service mix for your property.
I think this is super spot on. Let's stick with volume for a second, because obviously this is something which as a usually on the tenant side of things, it's one of the most exaggerated elements you're confronted with, because it's usually a number.
It's a number.
So we have this many people a year or whatever.
Yeah.
And I do lecturing in university, so one of our last sessions we had this discussion about volume. If you have 100,000 people at a particular point with no money in the pocket to spend, the 100,000 people might become irrelevant for that type of concept you have created. If you only have 1,000 people which are willing to spend, the 1,000 becomes the volume you're after.
Absolutely. And that's why you have to drill down. That first point one, which is all about the flow and all about the numbers. And I learnt that very early on working in airports and railway stations, which have phenomenally high numbers. And especially an airport where you've got budget carriers. They're never going to spend their money on F&B because they've only paid, in those days, 30 or 40
quid for a flight.
For a flight.
They're not spending 100 grand.
You might be lucky to sell them a beer or a burger, but the chances are that they are always going to be low. So segmenting and understanding the segmentation of that footfall, and it's a painful exercise because you're inward facing. You're actually studying your own navel. You are trying to understand that, and a railway station might have 200,000 or 300,000 people going through it a day. But they're going from A to B, and they're using you as a transit.
Destination traffic. It's not necessarily picking up anything, just coming and going.
So I think that understanding of that volume, and as you say, lecturing at university, at colleges, this is where those bright brains, those young people can actually start segmenting that and looking for the 1,000 out of 1,000, out of 100,000, which is the bit you really want. That's the sweet spot, the mother lode, the vein of value, as I used to call it, where the business is.
Another observation which might fit in one of these 4 points of view is an observation from looking at developers sometimes is opinionated curation. I have everybody's entitled to an opinion, but you like a particular type of food, you like a particular type of establishment. But guess what? The people you have in your mall, they don't, because they don't have that appetite. They might have money to spend, but they don't want to spend it on what you're providing. So you come around and say F&B doesn't work. That's not necessarily true, because your mall might be ideally set for more QSR or different food and beverage experiences. You cannot just say I put a vegan restaurant in, and then suddenly people will travel from far just to come to my place. It just doesn't work that way. Don't you think?
I do, and I think the history has repeated itself so many times where owners of properties have said, well, this is where I know this restaurateur, he does a really good thing, so we're going to put him into a shopping environment. I mean, it's just fatal. It's just fatal because that guy is the owner of a property company who probably is earning substantial amounts of money, has lots of disposable income, and it just doesn't fit. But, those are expensive mistakes. But at the end of the day, I think leasing teams also make the same mistakes.
Absolutely. It's just it trickles down.
In a slightly different way, because they don't go into the detail. Ladies and gentlemen, do the detail.
Details matter. Details matter.
Do the detail. When you go and look at a concept, don't just look at the menu and the price, but look at when it's open, when it's busy, what it's selling, how people are using it, because that will tell you so much more about how it will work in your space. And also, don't assume, the fatal thing is, do not assume that a restaurant operator will know how to operate in a shopping centre if they've never been there, or a railway station if they've never been in one, or an airport if they've never operated in one, because they have to change the DNA, the genetics of their business to be able to respond normally in a more timely way, because time is really important, normally with a smaller menu so that they can generate faster sales quicker. So there's a whole bunch load of stuff that you can't just pick X up and put it down over there and expect it to work.
And if you listen to what Johnny just said, and I just wrote an article about this, I think it's getting more, as a leasing team, it becomes more relevant to understand if the person on the other side of the table actually understands that. So it's not the PowerPoint of the design and the nice pictures about we're going to have great food, because, sorry for saying this, almost everyone has. You're not going to stand out by saying we have great food. Have you ever met somebody who has not great food? That would be a really cool story. However, so suddenly the questioning of your tenant becomes of, are you actually capable of doing this? You cannot just, as you said, not assume that every operator understands how to operate under any circumstance. Because the reason why we go into developments is...
That's your job.
Yeah.
That's your job. That's why people employ us, is, I hope, is to find them those nuggets of genius, those amazing concepts that are not the standard ones. Because we all know that, whether it's McDonald's or KFC or Blockhouse or Peter Pane, any of those, wherever you are in the world, they know how to operate in airports, railway stations, shopping centres. They know that. But for us to take something different and new and be able to bring it, curate it, deliver it, and ensure that it works, that's the heart of it.
Absolutely.
And that's what we have.
It's our job.
Do.
It's our job.
And in the same way, when you're dealing with franchises, it's our job to make sure that the partners that are being selected to work with that franchise brand actually understand it and can deliver it.
That's for a separate
absolutely,
for a separate session.
More important every day, because the franchise partners are becoming so much more important in the delivery of food service around the world, because few brands are actually doing it themselves in every neighborhood, every country. So I think that being honest is a hugely important thing. About, you want to do a deal, so you really want somebody to succeed, but actually you have a meeting with them and you think, I really don't get the right feeling of it.
Actually take a step back.
Take the feeling from the pit of your stomach.
I agree.
Go, okay, this is probably not going to work.
And just to close this session off, especially on the franchise side, there's two parties involved. There's the brand itself, and there is a potential operator of that brand. That is not necessarily the same thing. So whatever values you write into a brand, is not automatically given that these values are transported to any given site. So it is relevant who runs or who operates that business. And there's not just McDonald's and Burger Kings out there in the world, or others. Sorry, there's a couple of hundred. So, but there's so many which think they can transport value.
So many. I mean, we are seeing an explosion in brands. And I think it must be really, I sympathise for a lot of the leasing teams, a lot of the property owners out there, because, food service used to be literally a small niche sector. It's exploded now. The brands, they need to know. But please, one piece of advice, just listen to it. Do your homework on these brands. Understand what they offer. Recognise what the service style is, what the menu is, and make sure that you are really comfortable with how it fits into your existing mix and your future thoughts.
And just to piggyback right on what you just said, not everything which has a name or a couple of units is a brand. There's certain things just have a name. They're not yet a brand. People are not waking up in the morning and saying, this is the place I'm going to. So it's not automatically everything is a brand. Sometimes things have to develop into one.
That's good sometimes.
Good. I agree. I agree.
They call it system catering now, but where we've got brands that can replicate all over the world. I'm probably not a brand user very often now. I like individuality, and with that comes a certain level of risk.
And there is something like an organized individuality now in the world, which is perfectly fine. There's a couple of examples out there. There is a backbone which is organized and properly standardized, but upfront to the customer, it still feels very individual and great. With that, I think we close off that session. It was a great pleasure. Guys, we're going to see you again soon.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.